Hello everybody, my name's Matt Roloffs, and I'm going to be your professor this quarter in economics. I'm coming to you today not from our normal start of the quarter location of our classroom, but rather from my office here at home. As you've learned by now, I need to be out of town tomorrow and won't be able to meet with you on the first day, and I'm very sorry about that. But I think there are some things that we can do together today with technology that will allow us to get to know each other a little bit, learn a little bit more about the course, and then hit the ground running when we get to meet for the first time next Tuesday in person. What I'd like to talk with you a little bit about today is the nature of the course. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I use Canvas, talk you through the syllabus so you can learn about assignments and homeworks and things like that, and also show you how to get signed up for an online homework tool that we're going to be using to do all of our assignments throughout the quarter. So I hope that you're getting settled back in after a fantastic summer, and I look forward to seeing you next week. But for now, let's talk a little bit about the course. So what I've done here is directed my browser, record my screenshot here for you, directed my browser to two different pages. The first one that you see here is our Canvas page for Econ 306, and then the one that's back here in the second tab is the Applia page for our course. Applia is where we're going to be doing our homework. This is a site that you need to subscribe to, right? There's a cost. I'll explain how all that works a little bit later on, as well as how you get signed up for it. Canvas, of course, is automatic. You're enrolled. Once you're in the course, the university automatically puts you into this Canvas page. If you go to My Western or some of those other portals, it should show the courses that you're enrolled in. Econ 306 should be one of them, and you should be able to come and visit our page from here. In fact, that's probably how you got to this video, for that matter. So you come to Canvas, and I have it set up right now to look from the student's perspective. So this is what you will see. I keep the menu pretty simple on my Canvas page, just the key items. I hide everything else that we don't need. You'll find things like announcements. So here's a bit of an announcement about class today. First day kind of information. The fact that the course is challenging, that's good. It will definitely press you from time to time, but I think that the rewards more than outweigh the challenge. And quite honestly, sometimes the challenge is the reward. So really looking forward to it. This is, as I said down here at the bottom, one of my favorite classes to teach. It's very eye-opening for a lot of students. They've been through 206. They kind of get sort of the general idea, but when we get down to the really core theory that we're going to look at here and we cover it in a really careful, rigorous way, there's a lot of light bulbs that go on. That's really fun to see from my side of the desk. You'll see a list on the left here for assignments. These are just the items. We'll talk more about these things when we get to the syllabus in a moment. Discussions. This is important because, as you'll note from the email that I sent out and or from the handout that you got if you went to the classroom, you'll notice that there's this introductory, this thread for introductions. And I'll give you just a little idea of what's going on here. So there's a description of how this is going to work that I posted, and then this is my bio. So you can see I was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I've spent time in Norway, and I like They Might Be Giants as one of my favorite bands and things like that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself here in this bio. And then what I'm going to have you do, particularly since we can't be together on the first day, and do some other icebreaker kind of activity, is I'm going to have each of you respond when you first come to post your introduction or your bio. First, read the one just in front of you. So Nicole showed up this morning a little bit before 9 o'clock, read my bio, made this very nice response, right? Said nice things about me, that I'm well-grounded and adventurous. Those are both good qualities to have, I suppose. And so she posted this response and then posted her own bio as well. So we can see that Nicole's from Lake Stevens and so on. The next person to show up was Lucas. He followed directions very well. Extra bonus points for Lucas. And he posted a response to Nicole's bio and then posted his own bio. And that's as far as we've gotten so far, those two people. So the next person that shows up will respond to Lucas, post theirs, and then we'll continue in that kind of leapfrogging sort of manner. You need to do this by Sunday night at midnight. So sometime over the weekend, come in, visit, read the bio right in front of you, post a response, post your bio, and then we'll keep trucking from there. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on Monday once I'm back in town looking through all of this information. It's a great way to get to know you. Maybe we'll do a little bit of guess who's who kind of activity when we first start on Tuesday. All right, so that's the discussion. There may be other discussion threads throughout the quarter, but for now there's just this one about introductions. Grades, there's nothing really to see here yet. As the quarter goes on, you'll see your scores reported here and percentages and weights and things like that. There's a list of people. If you want to try and get in touch with somebody from the class, you can write to them from this spot and communicate to them with them directly in Canvas. And then lastly, and this is where there's a couple other important pieces of information, there's a menu here called Files. And right now there's just a folder called Course Materials. Later on there will be a folder called Exam Solutions or something like that, Quiz and Exam Solutions. So you'll come here to get a hold of documents related to the course. So I'm going to go in Course Materials. There's two things I want to show you. First of all is the syllabus. We'll talk through that in a little bit here. And then secondly is the instructions for how to get signed up for Applia. Let's talk about the syllabus because that will allow us to describe and talk a little bit about Applia, and then I'll show you how to get there, and then I'll show you Applia itself. All right, so here's the syllabus. It's pretty standard. I'm not going to go through tons of this in detail. You can read it on your own. Just as a side note, I don't print hard copies of syllabi anymore, even if we are together on the first day. So you're not missing out in any way in that way. You will have access to the syllabus on Canvas anytime you want. If I need to make an update, I'll let you know and I'll post the updated version. That way you always are looking at the most current document. Contact information about where to find me and how to get a hold of me. Email is undoubtedly going to be your best option. You can email me either directly to my university address shown here, or you can contact me from Canvas. And quite honestly, contacting me in Canvas is probably a slightly better strategy because it allows me to keep the threads running a little bit better. It's less likely to get buried amongst all the other email that I get. So send me a message in Canvas is probably your best bet. Regular old email is probably your second best bet. And phone calls are a distant third. Office hour information you can see here. You can read the hours for yourself. I just want to emphasize that I am available lots of other times other than this Tuesday, Thursday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon schedule. But it varies from week to week, and so I don't commit to anything else. But if you need to see me, you have questions, just let me know. Drop in if you would like, but if you want to schedule an appointment, that's a way to guarantee that I'll be there when you show up. Love to be of help. A little description of the course. The thing I would say about Intermediate Micro right out of the gate is that a lot of the topics will look familiar to you. We're going to talk about consumers, demand, firms, supply, markets, all of that. But we do it in, there's sort of two distinctions. First, we do it in a lot more depth and detail. We spend a lot of time working on what I like to call the backstories of each of these topics. So rather than just dive right in and say, here's a demand function, doesn't that look great? And everyone nods their head. Instead, we go all the way back to sort of the very, very beginning, the very sort of primitive ideas about how we're going to study consumers, and we build from very basic first principles and basic assumptions all the way up to the demand curve. The second distinction is we do that in a very rigorous way. Doesn't mean it's overly mathematical, but just that it's very carefully done. And so we'll use graphs from time to time, we'll use some equations from time to time, but we're just going to be very analytical and careful in the way that we do our work. I think you'll really like it. It's one of, like I said at the beginning, one of those eye-opening sorts of courses. Course objectives are what they are. You can read these. Prerequisites, some other economics experience on the micro side, ECON306 for most of you, and differential calculus. Math 157 for a lot of you, Math 124 would be an alternative that would be more than adequate. But knowing about derivatives, that's really pretty much all you need to be ready for. We don't do any integration or anything like that. Course materials. The textbook, Intermediate Microeconomics, A Modern Approach. Thank goodness, it's the modern version. In the 9th edition by Hal Varian. Varian has held a number of academic posts over the years. He was a professor at the University of Michigan for a long, long time. Maybe 10 or 12 years ago, he left Michigan and went to Cal. To Berkeley, was a professor there for a while, and then became dean of the business school at Cal. And recently, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, mostly left that position. I think he still has some affiliation and is now the chief economist at Google. So It's got a nice sort of mix of academic experience and real-world experience. An outstanding economist, an economist for many of us. The book is fantastic. It's very digestible. You'll see when we get to the list of topics in a moment that things come in very small pieces. Each of the chapters is quite short, and I think that makes it easy to move through and kind of build one little part on another. It's really fantastic. I've used this book almost my entire career, and you would have to pry it out of my hands in order to get me to switch to something else. I have book reps come by all the time with the latest and greatest intermediate micro book, and we don't have a very long conversation. The other thing that you need to purchase is a subscription to Applia. A little bit of background is appropriate. Applia used to be an independent web-based homework tool. It was originally developed by Paul Romer when he was at Stanford. And the idea was to build an online homework system that was not specifically tied to any particular textbook and that had very, very, very high quality content. So all the content was originally written and curated by actual professors, not by graduate students, not by publisher reps, things like that, but by actual working real-world economists. So it's very, very, very well done. Applia was purchased a few years ago by Cengage, which is one of the big publishing houses. And so it's lost a little bit of that. It's become a little bit more textbook specific. In our case, that's not a big problem because it's very textbook specific. But in this particular instance, that's actually a good thing. And it's a good thing because the workbook that goes with the intermediate micro book from Varian is called Workouts, which should give you a slight cause to sort of think about that word for a moment, workouts. I'm usually tired after a workout. My brain is going to be tired. It's called Workouts in Intermediate Microeconomics. It is even more fantastic than the fantastic textbook. It's probably the reason I stick with the textbook, quite honestly. And it has effectively been digitized and sucked into Applia, so we can use the Applia homework system, which allows grading to be done automatically, so I can assign a lot more homework. You're a lot more responsible for that homework. You get better feedback than you would, feedback for every single question written out than you would get if we were doing it together in class and things like that. We'll still do that from time to time, but it really is a fantastic supplement to the textbook. It does cost some money. It's, I think, $70 or $75 for the quarter to get Applia. Textbooks, I should have mentioned, by the way, earlier editions are fine if you want to buy a used book. The 9th edition's been around for a while, so you should be able to find used copies of that as well, or you can just buy it straight out of the bookstore. If you go the most expensive route, buy a new copy of the book. I think it's about $150, and a subscription to Applia is about $75, so you'd be in the course for about $225. But you can keep that way, way down by buying a used copy of the book. I would guess you could probably get a used copy for certainly $50, maybe less, and probably get your total cost down to about $100 or so. So we'll talk more about Applia in a minute, but that's my pitch for it. It is not inexpensive. I totally realize that. I would not ever require you to buy something that I didn't think was worth its price and then some. This definitely passes the cost-benefit test. Course policies, I'll let you read through these on your own. Nothing terribly surprising there. Course requirements. Pretty straightforward setup. We're going to do homework nearly every day on Applia. There are 2 quizzes, one that comes at about the 1/4 point and one that comes at about the 3/4 point. There's a midterm, cleverly enough, at the middle of the term, right around the end of October, and then a comprehensive final exam that happens during finals week. The distinctions that I'll make, homework problems on Applia, we'll talk more about how they work a little bit later on. There's some practice ones and some graded ones. The graded ones are the ones that count towards this 20%. The quizzes are multiple choice. You can read down here about them. So they're multiple choice, 10 questions, intended to be pretty straightforward. I don't try and throw any curveballs on quizzes. It's just kind of a good test of how you've been doing on the homework. The exams, on the other hand, I am known to throw a few curveballs. I'm kind of proud of that, actually. A lot of the material is pretty straightforward, but it's a chance for me to kind of stretch you a little bit, push you in some new direction, see how far you can reach with the material that you've learned. You'll notice there's these 2 different columns in this table, and I should probably rename them. Option suggests that you have to pick, and you really don't. There's basically 2 different weighting schemes, And they're exactly the same except for how they deal with exams. So the homework and the quizzes are the same. There's essentially in the second option over here, this is the I did better on the final than I did on the midterm version. And if so, then the midterm basically disappears. If you do better on the midterm than the final, then you'll get a higher score under option 1. Again, you do not pick. I pick. I don't really even pick. I just set my spreadsheet up to pick the higher of these two numbers. But you can know that you can't really, and not that you should blow off the midterm anyway, but if you have a bad day on the midterm day, you can make up for it by doing better on the final. You have a bad quiz day, that's unforgivable. That's not really unforgivable, but there's no redemption opportunities there. Again, because these are more straightforward and more just about doing the work, where there's more opportunity for things to go wrong for different reasons come midterm time. So we'll talk more about those things as we get closer, and the dates and all of that are in both Applia and in Canvas for each of those items. The topics, I mentioned earlier that the book comes at you in very small pieces. Each of these topics, budget constraints, preferences, utility, choice, is roughly a day's worth of work for us. What I would expect that you would do, and you'll see this in Applia in a little while, is that the day that we're going to talk about budget constraints, that you would read the second chapter in Variant. I wouldn't spend a lot of time, quite honestly. You don't hear professors say that much, but I would suggest 20, 30 minutes tops for a typical chapter. They're usually 8, 10, 12 pages long. There's just not much to them. And read for kind of the big picture. Don't get totally hung up on one particular little detail, because chances are I'll be able to clear that up for you when we're in class. So do a quick type read, 20, 30 minutes through the chapter. Okay, this is what it's about. This is how it fits in with the story so far. I'm kind of ready to do some examples in class and see how it all gets built. Great. Come to class, and then we'll work through the material together. I will try and keep lecture time to roughly 2/3, maybe a little bit more than that, of our class time, so that we can do plenty of examples. I, in the past, have had not really a problem, but a tendency to kind of let the lectures drag on a little bit, and that's one of my new academic year resolutions, is to try and be a little bit quicker, not get bogged down in details quite as much unless we need to, so we can have time to do some examples. So you'll see this whole list, which chapters are included on quizzes. Here's the midterm exam. Just a note here, there is a day towards the end of the first half of the course that we will take to do review in class together, that I call the workshop day. So you'll see that there, and then this is the second half with a quiz partway through, another workshop day, and then the final exam. All right, and then I always close all my syllabi with this little thing down here, a final word. Just talks about being prepared, doing your work well. This course, more than a lot of them, and I'm a pretty bad procrastinator myself, so I say this from personal experience. This course, more than a lot of courses, is really, it's extremely beneficial if you can keep up to date every day. A little bit of work every day is much, much, much more successful than a lot of work over a couple days towards the end. So that's the syllabus. That's kind of what you can expect in terms of the requirements for the course. So I'm going to close that. Let me quickly show you the Applia instructions about how to get signed up. This is pretty straightforward. You just go to this website right here. This code at the end is what links you up to our particular section. You can pay credit, debit, PayPal. You can pay right away if you would like, but I would really encourage you, unless you're 197% sure that you're going to stay in the course, which most of you probably are, but unless you're very sure of that, there is a free trial, and there's no stigma attached to the free trial or anything like that. You can use Applia without paying until the middle of October, until October 14th. So if there's any chance at all that you might decide to not take the course, to not continue, this would save you the trouble of trying to extract money back from Applia, which I would expect to be pretty difficult. So use the free trial if you're not sure. Otherwise, you can pay when you go to the website. Again, I think $70 or $75 is the current rate. All right, so that's how to get signed up with Applia. And let's close then by looking at Applia itself. There's just a couple quick things I want to show you. This is the page that you will see. Again, this is from the student's perspective, the page that you'll see when you get to Applia. You'll notice here that things are organized by weeks. So this week there's not much going on other than welcome to the class. And next week is when things really start. You'll need to get signed up for Applia in the next few days. Again, use that trial account, or that free trial if you need to, but get signed up so that you show up here on my list, and so that you can do some assignments for next week, Tuesday. Anything that's got a hyperlink here is an assignment. You'll notice they come in two flavors, practice and graded. We'll talk about those in a moment. There will be other things here, which are typically reading assignments. So what I usually do on a particular day is list all the things in blue, all the assignments that you need to complete, and then follow that with the reading assignment for that particular day. So you can look ahead and say, okay, for Tuesday, I need to do the introductory practice problem set, the introductory graded problem set, and the interactive tool tutorial. Interactive tool tutorial. That's a bit of a tongue twister. And to be prepared for lecture, you need to read chapter 2 and read chapter 3. We'll definitely get done with 2. We may or may not get done with 3. The chapters sometimes kind of spread over different days and so on, but I'll keep you up to date on that. It's probably easier to talk down here about than Thursday's material, which you'll notice the reading is to read the next chapter, chapter 4. But let's talk about these homeworks. So you will have, before you come to class on Tuesday the 29th, you will read chapter 2 in Variant. Again, 20, 30 minutes. You will come to class, we'll work through the material, go through some examples, you'll be all feeling super good about budget constraints. You will then, between the end of class on Tuesday and the beginning of class on Thursday, you will go home and on your computer you'll log into Applia and you will complete at least the graded problem set, and possibly 2, including the practice problem set for the budget constraint chapter. So here's how the practice graded thing works. The practice sets do not count towards your grade. The graded ones, cleverly enough, since they're called graded, do count towards your grade. I have students take a number of different approaches to the practice problem sets. Some people do them faithfully, do all the problems in the practice before they go do the graded. That's fine. Other people use it as sort of a fallback. So they start with the graded problems. If they get stuck, they go back and look for something in the practice set that might help them out. And the third possibility is to skip them all together. Don't do any of the practice problems now. Just do the graded ones. You probably won't do quite as well as if you would use the practice to get ready, but that's potentially a trade-off you want to make, because then come exam time, a week or so before the midterm, for example, you can go back and you have a whole huge set of practice problems to work on. They cover basically the same material, so it's a good way for you to brush up on your skills to get ready for the exam. So that's the deal. So the practice problem sets don't count towards your grade, the graded ones do. The other way that they're different is that the practice problem sets, I'll show you how one of these works. We'll go into budget constraint 2. There's a number of different information bubbles up here at the top, sort of like introduction to the chapter, that kind of thing. There's usually some good examples in here that you should look at. So we kind of continue on through that. And I'm going to skip over, because I already did this first problem. Let's skip over that one. Did okay. Let's go to this one. So that's a pretty short problem, actually. So there's going to be a change in Murphy's budget set. He was consuming 100 units of X and 50 units of Y. The price changed and so on. What happens? And we're going to pick an answer. We'll just guess. We'll say 200. How much would Murphy's income have to rise so he could exactly afford 100 units of X and 50 units of Y? Let's call it 200 bucks. So you go through, you work through this problem, you put in $200, and you check your answer. Ah, you got it wrong, rats. You know you got it wrong because you got an X. It'd be a green check if you got it correct. And there's information, right? There's an explanation for how to solve this problem. So if you were stuck on a graded problem set and you couldn't figure it out, you can go back, find a problem here, work on it, try it, see how you do. If you miss it, you can read the bubble, read the little explanation. It's very, very helpful information here. Close that. Wow, there we go. So you'll go through then and we submit our answer to that problem. Then we move on to the next problem. And we do fill out some answers. So fast. We work on all this. And we check our answer. Oh, seriously, got one right at least down here at the bottom. So for each of these questions, right, there's a little bubble, info bubble I can click, and I can see an explanation. So that's how the practice problems work. If I go back for a moment to our home page, the graded problems are a little bit different. Take a look at problem number 3, for example. I fill in the graded problem set. In this case, I need to draw a budget constraint, so I drag these things around. You'll learn all about this in some of those first problems. So I do that, and I submit my answer. No feedback. right? Nothing. It doesn't tell me, did you get it right? Did I get it wrong? It just moves me on to the next problem. What's happening when I hit that button is that my response is being stored on Applia's server so that when the due date shows up, which for this particular assignment is next week, Thursday at 10 a.m., once we hit that due date and time, the homework is automatically graded and you get a report that tells you how you did. And then when you go back to the assignment after the due date has passed, there will be those little info bubbles on all these things. And you'll see red X's and green, hopefully lots of green check marks. And you can go in and see and check your work and see why you missed the ones that you missed, get a little bit more explanation. That sort of review after the fact is probably the most important part of this process. Do a good job working on the homework, but even more importantly, make sure that when you're done, you go back and check and see how you did. All right, so that's what you need to be thinking about in terms of Applia. The thing I'll leave you with, let's go back to just our very front page here on Canvas, is just a sort of checklist of items that you should be doing over the next couple days before we meet in person. First of all, make sure that you go through, look over the syllabus, make sure you don't have any questions. Secondly, go ahead and visit our Canvas page and go to the discussion section, go to the introduction thread that I started, and respond to somebody, respond to the person in front of you, post your own bio, earn some extra credit points. Do that by Sunday night. Third, get your book on order. If you don't have it yet, get on Amazon, get on your favorite online vendor, get a copy headed your way as quickly as possible. Then lastly, make sure that you go into Canvas, go under Files, find that Applia content, follow that link, and get signed up for Applia. You can use the free trial, so you don't have to outlay any money now, but establish an account in Applia, poke around a little bit, and make sure you do those first 3 assignments. Again, two of those assignments, wasn't going to jump back here, but I will, are practice, introductory practice and the interactive tool tutorial. They won't count towards your grade, but they're worth looking at. But make sure you do this one. This will be the easiest homework assignment you do all quarter long. This is, I don't remember, 10 points or so. That's pretty darn free or close to free. So make sure you get those things done in the next few days, and I will see you all next week, Tuesday. Thanks.